France, a beautiful country. A country where you can find yourself in paradise, just a train ride away from Paris, Lyon, Rennes, or Marseille. Along with the other members of the Mercersburg Academy Exchange, I was lucky enough to find myself in the Rhone Alps, camping in the French Alps at night and spending days on the beach of Lac-en-Sea by day. I stayed in Grand Bornand for 2 weeks during the homestay component of our journey. Amazingly, it didn't take much effort to see what initiatives the Cheyenne family were enacting every day to minimize waste and reduce their carbon footprint. Coming from a family that uses paper napkins and paper towels endlessly, I noticed when I received the same cloth napkin time and time again. I also remember a conversation that I had with the family where we talked about how much their family loves motorcycles. I was surprised to find out that motorcycles and scooters are seen as normal and common in France, and the family was quick to point out that there is not a stigma or bias against the people who use them. After doing research and talking with my host family, I found out that the minimum age to get a driver's license for a car in France is 18. There was more of an emphasis on using other modes of transportation such as motorcycles, where teenagers can begin driving at 16, bikes that have no emissions, or public transportation. In France, there is a clear emphasis on using public transportation, not just because it is easy and widespread, but because it is also better for the environment. When thinking about transportation, personal transportation usually comes to mind. However, in today's society, a society conscious of carbon emissions and global warming, the transportation of food and goods is also very important. In France, the ability to get foods that have been grown locally was apparent in cities and rural villages alike. The transportation of fruits or cocoa beans from South America to the United States, for example, is a major contributor of carbon dioxide emissions. Even foods that are made in the Midwest, grains and meats, often have to travel far distances on trains and trucks before they end up in our grocery stores. In France, there was a large emphasis on going to local food markets, which can be found all over France and are usually offered once a week. After accompanying my host mother to the food and craft market in Grand Bornand, a small ski town 30 minutes from Annecy, she told me that she comes every Sunday to get meats, cheese, fish, fruits, and vegetables, eggs, in which they reuse the egg cartons, and other already prepared foods. In an interview with my host mother, Cécile Cheyenne, I asked her about what changes people could make in their daily lives in terms of food consumption.
Il faut plus apprendre aux gens à consommer avec les saisons.
Oui.
Donc tu consommes les légumes de saison au moment où c'est la saison.
Ah, d'accord, ouais.
Plutôt que de vouloir manger des tomates au mois de décembre et des fraises au mois de janvier.
Afterwards, we went to the traditional grocery store to pick up some ice cream, and I couldn't help but notice that even in their small country, over 50% of the fruits and vegetables were a product of France, and the ones that weren't came from Spain or another neighboring country. Another important factor in food transportation and consumption is the amount of plastic that gets created and then later thrown away, contributing to the billions of tons of waste that destroys the beautiful landscapes that these small villages are built into. Just in the small town of Grandbeau, as it is lovingly called by the residents, there are recycling containers around every corner. Intrigued by the seemingly endless number of things done every day to reduce and recycle, I followed up with Mrs. Cheyenne to find out more.
On a des bacs de tri différenciés dans le garage. Donc on jette le verre dans un bac, le carton dans un autre et les déchets ménagers dans un autre. Et on va tout amener au bout de la rue dans des containers spéciaux pour le recyclage. Ils ont été installés il y a peut-être 5 ans. Oui. Et oui, les gens n'étaient pas contents parce que si tu veux, pour nous, c'est juste à côté. Oui. Mais pour les autres, il faut prendre la voiture, mettre les poubelles dans la voiture et amener. Il y en a à plusieurs endroits dans la commune, mais pas devant la porte de chaque personne.
However, recycling and reducing waste are not the only things that citizens are doing every day. In Nantes, France, for example, restaurants and businesses have begun to collect local food waste to turn back into soil through composting.
No one was doing this before. We sort plastic, we sort glass, we sort paper. Why not sort organic waste?
The initiative was launched in 2015 by La Tricyclerie, a non-profit from Nantes in western France. For 4 days every week, Valentine Villebout and her team cycle to the city's restaurants, collecting up to 1.5 tons of organic waste per month.
But after this trip, I began to wonder, By hosting the UN climate talks in Paris, what does that say about France's commitment to environmental initiatives? What legislation had the French government put in place before the talks, and what have they done since? To get a little background, I asked Mrs. Chyon when the environmental campaigns began.
On a commencé à avoir les mouvements politiques écologistes entre 20 et 30 ans à peu près, tu vois. On a commencé à parler plus de choses comme ça.
At the turn of the century, France began to really step up their game, becoming one of the leaders in the world in passing progressive environmental legislation. From 1990 to 2007, France was able to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 7%. In 2013, the New Face of Industry in France initiative was passed, which started at the local level with small villages increasing and improving their public transportation. There was also more incentives for building energy-smart homes. It should come as no surprise that France has invested almost 6 billion euros in increasing renewable energy and increasing energy efficiency in the country when their country has one of the highest numbers of endangered species in the world.
Notre maison, quand on l'a construite, on a choisi de chauffer avec la géothermie, qui est une énergie renouvelable pour ne pas abîmer la planète. Toutes nos baies vitrées, les fenêtres, c'est un verre spécial qui laisse rentrer la chaleur et qui la laisse pas sortir.
This pressure to protect their natural wildlife as well as their beautiful lakes, mountains, and coastlines encourages more pollution cleanup, more initiatives to reduce global warming, and more prevention of the resource exploitation. In 2015, France passed many pieces of legislation, but most notably they hosted the UN Paris climate talks, where 195 nations came to Paris to work out an agreement in which the global emission levels could be contained. Finally, in the end, all but 2 of the countries agreed to contribute to the goal of getting to a level where the amount of CO2 produced is equal to the amount that can be absorbed by forests and oceans by 2050 to 2100. Every 5 years, the countries would be reviewed, and there would also be a climate finance approach where larger, more developed countries would help out poorer countries to cut emissions and help them build up their renewable energy systems, as well as cut down on waste. Perhaps what was most saddening was the recent decision led by President Donald Trump of the United States to withdraw from the Paris climate agreements in line with America First attitudes.
The United States will withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord. This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining a financial advantage over the United States. What point does America get demeaned? At what point do they start laughing at us as a country? We want fair treatment for its citizens, and we want fair treatment for our taxpayers. We don't want other leaders and other countries laughing at us anymore, and they won't be. They won't be.
However, Macron was quick to respond, giving a statement in English, the first time a French president has done something of the sort targeted towards the United States.
France will not give up the fight. I reaffirm clearly that the Paris Agreement remains irreversible and will be implemented, not just by France, but by all the other nations. Because wherever we live, whoever we are, we all share the same responsibility. Make our planet great again.
The question now is, what does the future hold? Which countries will choose to stand alongside France in the fight for a better future against human-induced climate change? As I reflect back on my visit to the Mer de Glace and seeing the levels that the glacier had fallen to, it is beginning to hit me how serious this problem really is. I see France standing up for its plants and animals, its water and air quality, its transportation and housing systems. The question is truly, will it be enough?